New comic book day is around the corner again. So it's time to take a look at what's coming out so I can tell you what's on the pull list. Welcome back to Comics Are Dope. I'm BJ Kicks, and this is The Pull List. It's my weekly video series where I take a look at the books coming out. I'll tell you what's on my pull list, what's on the chopping block, and maybe some other books that should be on your radar for this new comic book day. This time we're looking at Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. I said it last week, but this year is like flying by. It's going to be new free comic book day before you know it. That's crazy. Now, there are a lot of books on the pull list this week. The prices are kind of high. I'm over budget this week, which means I got some serious reevaluating to do, some soul searching to do this week. So spoiler alert, stay in your seats to figure out what my totals are and what made it to the list. Now, before we get into this week's comic releases, I do want to acknowledge a bit of sad news we got in the last week or so. We've had a lot of pretty sad and tragic news recently in comics, but one thing that's kind of flown under the radar is the passing of legendary artist Mark Bright, also known as Doc because his initials were MD. But Mark Bright was an awesome comic book creator. He had, I guess, most of his fame in like the late 80s, early 90s, working on titles like Power Man and Iron Fist, G.I. Joe, Iron Man, Green Lantern, a lot of really cool stuff for Green Lantern. And, you know, a really storied career. The works that I know him for mostly are his works on Icon for Milestone Comics, and then Quantum and Woody, which was a creator-owned series he did for Valiant, or then known as Acclaim Comics, with Christopher Priest. And, you know, I actually just recently had a conversation with Christopher Priest, and we talked about the inspiration for Quantum and Woody and how so much of that was like a play on their real life relationship. So it sucks to see that Mr. Bright is now gone. But there's been questions about like, why didn't, you know, Mark Bright have like more fame associated with him? And I think it's just because he was, you know, active before the era of the superstar artist. And like by the time like Image and all that stuff was coming around, you know, he was already like the old grizzled vet. He didn't have like the super young, like take over the world energy. But I'm super grateful that he decided to contribute to the Milestone universe. Mark Bright was one of the people that got a call from Dennis Cowan, like, hey, we're doing this thing. But according to Priest, he didn't come to the meeting, but he still ended up getting work with Milestone, and his work on Icon is actually the first bit of Milestone work that I ever read. Because, yeah, I found out about Milestone because of Static, but by the time I got to it, Static was super expensive. So these Icon comics were some of the first, or were actually the first Milestone comics that I ever really read. And all of this artwork by Mark Bright is super dynamic. And I guess what's really cool is it's dynamic and suspenseful, whether there's a superhero on the page or not. Like even like the sitting around and talking and looking pensive scenes are just as awesome as the high action scenes. And, I guess there's not really a great way to showcase that without you actually reading the book. One thing I love about Icon is always like just the huge flowy cape, like that might remind you of like Spawn or something, which, you know, was a contemporary title. But this shot of Rocket, I love. So there's a lot about Mark Bright's artwork that's just awesome, honestly. And I mean, but I think for me, what stands out are his faces, like the acting on his faces. And like, look at this face shot of Rocket right here. So there's one like splash page where it's just Icon, just like, grr. I don't know where it is in this book. I don't want to like keep thumbing through. But anyway, Mark Bright's artwork is awesome. So there's that. I've got one of his issues of Green Lantern behind me, and you get the same sorts of things. But again, if I got to recommend one Mark Bright work to read, Icon's probably it. Icon's probably the number one that I tell you to read. But also, you got to check out Quantum and Woody. I personally prefer the painted art in, or painted colors in Icon better, but Quantum and Woody has the most fun that you'll see in a Mark Bright book. He co-plots the story with Priest. And so I feel like it's the two of them letting loose and doing just all the gags that you would want to see in a comic book. Like, it's as funny as maybe a Deadpool book would be, but with depth and heart. Like, so that's what I'd recommend, Quantum and Woody. But anyway, all that to say, rest in peace to the legendary Mark Bright. And hopefully, this video serves to get more people into his work who may not have seen it. You've probably seen it. You probably just didn't know what you were looking at before. But anyway, congrats on an amazing career. And now you're up in heaven, man. That's awesome. So now let's talk about the books that I'm super excited to get to this week. I always like to start these off with the book I'm most excited for. And that was a hard decision this week, but we're going to go with Hercules, issue number 1 from Dynamite Entertainment. Hercules, written by Elliot Kalin, with art by George Cambadeas. Now, you might be familiar with George Cambadeas because he just recently wrapped up the Gargoyles series, the 12-issue maxi with Greg Weisman. And he's been doing a lot of covers for Dynamite, like a lot of different variants. So you've probably seen him, even if you don't really know his name. One thing I love that he does like this sort of, all his work is digital, but he does like this sort of like white chalk outline on a lot of his figures to make them pop from the backgrounds. And that's one thing that I find that's distinctive about his style that I really, really like. So aside from the fact that there's a great artist on it, I'm really excited about Hercules number 1. Because Elliot Kalin is also the guy who wrote Disney Villains Hades last year for Dynamite. And that book was a riot. It was hilarious all the way through. Now, I spoke with Elliot Kalin for the Comics Are Dope podcast. You can listen there or wherever podcasts are streamed. But we talked about the difference between the tone of this Hercules series versus the Disney Villains Hades. This is still going to be funny, but it's going to be a little bit more serious, a little bit more gravity in this series as was in the original movie. So I'm excited about it. And you guys know, I just love what Dynamite's doing with all these licensed titles, and they're not stopping. We got Space Ghost on FOC this week. There's a Johnny Quest book coming for Free Comic Book Day. There's a lot of stuff coming in the world of licensed comics, specifically from Dynamite, but from a lot of other creators as well. And I just love seeing these franchises from my childhood getting another life in comics, which is really cool. Anyway, that's an aside. Hercules number 1 out this week with a cover price of $4.99. There's a million covers to choose from. I'm grabbing cover A. And let's continue with the indie comics this week. My man Skip will be proud with me starting from indies. Let's go with Thundercats, issue number 3. Thundercats out this week from Declan Shalvey, who's writing, with art by Drew Moss. Now, Thundercats has basically been like a retelling of the 80s animated series, but with some details changed and added and, more stuff. We're basically getting a new version of the 80s series. We're ignoring all the stuff that came into canon after the fact. So if you never watched the animated the 80s animated series, you'd be fine reading this comic. I do feel like this book might rely on nostalgia a bit more to get into, but all that to say, the story is still pretty good. The Thundercats just landed on Earth from the planet Thundar. I was going to say Plundar. That's a different one, but from the planet Thundar. And, Lion-O got artificially aged up. So he's basically a boy in a man's body. That is to say, he's a kid going through puberty. And that's what I love about Declan Shalvey's writing of Lion-O. He's writing him like a teenager going through puberty, making stupid decisions, perhaps influenced by his body and not his mind. And so we get the pretty girl walking in, causing all kinds of calamity. The end of issue 2 reminded me a lot of the end of Michael Jackson's Thriller video. So there's that. I've really been enjoying the series, and the art by Drew Moss is really, really good. So another great addition to Dynamite's whole catalog of licensed comics is Thundercats. Issue 3 is out this week with a cover price of $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. take a sip of coffee out of my Comics Are Dope mug. I can't even follow through with the plug, but it's on the website. Let's go with the rest of the indie pull list. Next up is Transformers issue number 7. Transformers, written by Daniel Warren Johnson. And for this issue, for the first time, we will get art by Jorge Corona. And you've seen Jorge Corona. I want to say he's done a lot of work on Spawn as of late, but I may be getting him confused with someone else. Anyway, if you haven't seen him on that, you've definitely seen him on Middle West from Scotty Young, which was an awesome title. So I'm excited to see his art on Transformers. Obviously, Daniel Warren Johnson brings a style all his own, but the story he's telling has so much depth and heart. I'm excited to see what he's able to do when he's just able to focus on scripts and not have to worry about how he's going to lay that action down on the page. Transformers, definitely a series to look out for. This is the start of a new story arc. This picks up where trade paperback volume 1 leaves off. So buy this issue, pre-order the trade because it comes out in like a month or so, and you'll have all of the story. There you go. Transformers issue 7 out this week from Skybound with a cover price of $3.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And the last book on the indie pull list this week is a brand new number 1 from Boom Studios. This is Uncanny Valley, issue number 1. It's written by Tony Fleeks, who you may know from Army of Darkness over at Dynamite, or from Stray Dogs from Image a few years ago, or from the brand new series, the brand new ongoing Feral, which just came out 2 weeks ago. Either way, however you know Tony Fleeks, he's a great writer, and this time he is joined by the artist Dave Wachter, if I'm not mistaken. But Uncanny Valley is a story about a kid who finds out his grandfather's a cartoon, and a bunch of other cartoons are out to get him, and he's got to struggle with, like, how the heck am I part cartoon? What does that even mean? I'm assuming he's going to learn, like, new superhero abilities and stuff. I read issue 1, but I got to read, like, a advanced preview with watermarks all over it. I'm really excited to just see this and take in the art for what it is. There's this really awesome, like, painted style to the sort of realistic or real world artwork. But then you get the cartoons and it's awesome. The dude's grandfather looks like Yosemite Sam. Anyway, this isn't a review of the issue. The point is, it's a very good issue 1. And I'm excited for the rest of the series. So Uncanny Valley, number 1. Cover price on it is $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And that's it for the indie books on the pull list. If I stick to the list, my indies are going to cost me $19 this week. So a pretty heavy week for indies. Honestly, I don't do that many indies this often, but I'm excited about it. Now, let's move over to the world of DC Comics and see what they've got to offer, starting with a book that almost got my most excited spot. This is Action Comics issue 1064. This is the House of Braniac Part 1. Joshua Williamson's Superman crossover event, House of Braniac, starts here. It'll also spill over into the pages of Green Lantern by Jeremy Adams and Power Girl by the person that's writing Power Girl. But anyway, Action Comics is a direct crossover with Superman. So Action Comics and Superman are really all you need. All that to say, Brainiac's here. He's got an army of Lobos. What the heck's going on? How's he going to do it? I don't know. What I'm most excited about with House of Braniac, yeah, cool. Brainiac's back. Great. There's that. But Rafa Sandoval's doing the art here. And man, do I love Rafa Sandoval's art. It's just amazing. So Rafa Sandoval did Action Comics for a little bit during the Philip Kennedy Johnson run. He also did the beginning of Christopher Priest's Black Adam run. So you've seen Rafa Sandoval's art most likely if you've been reading DC Comics for the last few years. And you know, if you're reading that, why I'm excited about it. By the way, connecting variant cover or connecting cover A's between this and then the next issue of Superman are all the reason you need to buy this book. All the reason I need, $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And next book on the DC Comics pull list is Batman and Robin, issue number 8, also written by Joshua Williamson. And I'm picking this up for the same reason I'm picking anything else up that Joshua Williamson writes. Like, I've learned my lesson. You need to read Joshua Williamson's books to understand what's going on in the DC universe overall. Because when it's time for the next crisis or anti-crisis or whatever, He's going to have his hands all through it, and there's going to be through lines that ran through his books for the next couple of years. So there you go. If you're a Green Lantern fan or a Green Arrow fan, you know what I mean. All that to say, Batman and Robin issue 8. I'm behind on this series, but I look forward to getting caught up. And cover price on it is $4.99. Grabbing cover A. Next up from DC Comics is Green Lantern, issue number 10. Green Lantern by Jeremy Adams and Xermanico might quite literally be my favorite book at DC right now. And that is crazy for me. Nightwing just kind of fell off my radar with the Beast World event. And so I'm not caught up enough to say if it's still as good. But Tom Taylor's run on the character is winding down. And when I'm looking out at the landscape of things that I'm excited about at DC, I love the Superman stuff by Joshua Williamson. I was liking Action Comics till Philip Kennedy Johnson jumped off. I like Chip Zdarsky's Batman, but Green Lantern by Jeremy Adams is always good. And the art just, I love animated stuff. Like I love like cartoons, and this art just is made to be a DC animated universe movie. Like not this Tomorrowverse stuff, but like the real DCAU. Anyway, all that to say, I've been enjoying it. Green Lantern Hal Jordan is basically like trying to fight the United Planets. I'm a little bit behind on this one as well. I did get caught up on Green Lantern War Journal, but that's a different book. So we'll talk about it later. Green Lantern issue 10, cover price on it is $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And last book on the DC Comics pull list this week is Red Hood, The Hill, issue number 3. Red Hood, The Hill, written by Sean Martinborough. This is a series following Jason Todd in this neighborhood, The Hill, sort of the inner city of Gotham, if you will. That's been, the face of the city's changed a bit due to gentrification. So Jason Todd is kind of joining this multicultural community, fighting with vigilantes from this community against different threats to the neighborhood. And it's been fine. It's been good. What I loved about this series was the art from Sanford Green. Sanford Green is done with this series. It's a 4-issue mini. The first 2 issues were penciled by Sanford Green. The last 2 issues will be penciled by Tony Akins, who did the art for the 0 issue, if you're wondering. So good stuff, great art. It's just not going to be Sanford Green, but the story itself is pretty good. I'm enjoying it anyway, but my sensibilities aren't everyone's sensibilities. Red Hood, The Hill, issue 3 has a cover price of $3.99. Grabbing cover A. That's it. That's it for the DC Comics on the pull list this week. Just like my indie stack, if I stick to the list, those will cost me $19 this week. So that's a pretty standard week for me when it comes to DC Comics. What you won't expect, though, is just how many Marvel books are on the pull list this week. And I didn't expect it either. My wallet is not ready. So let's go ahead and get it started with The Amazing Spider-Man issue 47. Yeah. Ben Reilly and his girlfriend Janine are back. Hallows Eve, is it? And I can't even lie. I'm not excited about them at all. I'm not terribly excited about Amazing Spider-Man as a title, but I know me. I know my FOMO. I know I'm going to buy The Amazing Spider-Man issue 50 when the Green Goblin returns, and I would be upset with myself if I had a huge gap between issues 45 and 50. So I got to make it through Ben Reilly and Hallows Eve coming back. I will say, having art by Carmen Carnero makes it so much easier to get through this comic book. So it's a win-win or win-loss for me. I win looking at the art. Cover price on that one is $4.99. Okay, so it's like a win-loss. Anyway, $4.99. Grabbing cover A. Next up is Fantastic Four, issue 19. Fantastic Four by Ryan North. Almost called him Jeremy North. It's Ryan North. But anyway, nice one and done stories. This one is kind of written like a pulp hero noir detective story featuring some dude pining after Sue Storm. At least the solicitation is. So I'm curious to see just what exactly this book is about. I'm enjoying Fantastic Four by Ryan North. But as we're starting to I'm starting to realize my pull list has ballooned to borderline outrageous levels. That's one of the titles that might be getting closer to the chopping block, just as Amazing Spider-Man is. But another conversation for another day. Fantastic Four issue 19. Cover price on it is $3.99. Grabbing cover A. And last book, or that's not the last book, the next book on the Marvel pull list is The Resurrection of Magneto, issue number 4. Resurrection of Magneto, written by Al Ewing, starring Storm and Magneto. One of my favorite storylines during the whole reign of X was X-Men Red, and how Magneto and Storm had teamed up to govern or help govern Arakko and serve on their version of the Quiet Council. And when Magneto died during one of those events, I want to say it was Judgment Day, he was very clear in his instructions, like, don't resurrect me. And Storm is resurrecting him. And I have not read a single issue of The Resurrection of Magneto. I read the first issue. I haven't read 2 or 3. Issue 4 is the last issue. Obviously, Magneto is going to come back. And I think that's the part that's like made me not really care to read it like on time. But all that to say, I loved Al Ewing on X-Men Red. I imagine this is just as good and compelling. But something about the release schedule for the Fall of X just does not make sense to me. Like, why are we getting this and X-Men Forever now, while the Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Power? Like, why are those not the only 2 things happening right now? I keep asking the same questions and I keep buying all the books. So I'm the sucker. Resurrection of Magneto, issue 4, the last issue of this miniseries. Cover price on it is $4.99. That cover A is amazing. Next up is a book that I'm still kind of on the fence about, but the backlash to issue 1 made me want to read issue 2 even more, if that makes any sense. We're talking about Ultimate X-Men, issue number 2, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. Issue 1 was not what I expected to see from a comic called Ultimate X-Men. We'll put it like that, right? We got a super intense focus on one specific character, the mutant known as Armor. This was written by in this sort of like horror manga style, which is interesting. It's not something that's in my wheelhouse at all. But what I will say is it was an interesting book. Like, Peach Momoko wrote and drew it very well. It's an engaging story, even if it's not a story that I would normally read. I'm willing to take my time with it because issue 1 was intriguing. That's probably the best way to put it. I was intrigued by issue 1. I'm curious to see how things go with issue 2, where she's going to introduce this this new character that's inspired by Storm. And I'm curious to see who the rest of the Ultimate X-Men are. As the series unfolds, I'm curious to see how that all goes. I've been loving all the Ultimate Universe stuff, and maybe I'm buying this off the strength of that. But this Ultimate Universe, just the way the world's been playing out between Spider-Man and Black Panther, has been really cool. With the forces of Ra and Khonshu and all that going on. I don't know how that's going to tie into this area of Japan where Peach Momoko's book is taking place, but hey, I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Ultimate X-Men issue 2's got a cover price of $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And next up on the Marvel Comics pull list is Wolverine issue 47. If you've been watching this series for the last 3 weeks, then you know what I'm going to say. I'm not caught up on Sabretooth War. I don't feel the need to get caught up on Sabretooth War, but here we are. 3 issues left until the end. Cover price on this is $4.99. I'm grabbing cover A. And last book on the Marvel Comics pull list this week is probably on the chopping block. This is X-Men 97, issue number 2. I bought issue 1 strictly off the strength of how much I loved the first 2 episodes of X-Men 97. Now I've watched the first 3 episodes of X-Men 97. Love them all just as much. But X-Men 97, the comic, is basically a prequel. So in that issue, if you watch X-Men 97, then you know the issue 1, just kind of is Jean telling Cyclops that she's pregnant. It's not essential. If you watch the X-Men 97 animated series, then everything you need to know is in the episodes that you watch. This comic does lay out some things, maybe help you understand some characters' motivations and how we got to where we are now from the ending of the last X-Men 92 series. And I guess there is some value in that. I won't lie, like it's just completely useless, but it's not necessary, especially if you got a heavy pull list like I do, and the cover price on it is $3.99. If I grab it, I'm grabbing cover A, but it's likely on the chopping block, because if I grab that book, that brings my Marvel total up to $28 this week. And if you were following along at home, you already know that I'm already at about 40 between DC and indie comics. So if I change nothing, my grand total this week would be $66. Now, I'm on a weekly budget of about $50. That's what I'd like to spend comfortably per week. And at $66, that means I'm 3 books over the limit this week. So if I had to cut 3 titles off the bat, what would they be? I would cut X-Men 97. I would likely cut Fantastic Four, because that's at a nice like jumping off point for a trade paperback. Amazing Spider-Man should go. It honestly should go. And then I could probably cut Batman and Robin by Joshua Williamson and not feel bad about it, because I got so much other Batman stuff in my collection already. So there are titles that could go. My problem is that I'm a completionist, and also like I'm a simp. Like if I start a story, I don't want to stop it. Like, and then comics just keep going. Comics are ongoing. That's the reason they call them ongoing. They don't stop. So if you don't stop, it's not like they're going to stop for you. So you got to put a stop to it at some point. We're going to have that conversation in another video. It's got to be coming. It's got to be coming. It's inevitable. So stay tuned for that. Huge shout out to the channel family who keeps my pull list active at my LCS. And shout out to everyone else who watches the channel. I really appreciate you guys. I'll see you guys in another video real soon. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.